How many of you have ever worried? Harold Hazlitt gave this illustration. A lovely young girl named Gertrude was blind from birth. When an operation gave her the ability to see, two things immediately impressed her. Nature was more beautiful and colorful than she had imagined, and the faces of people were sadder than she had expected. I heard a story about a woman who hadn't had a good night's sleep for years and years because she was constantly worried about burglars. One night her husband heard a noise in the house, so he went downstairs to investigate. When he got there, he did find a burglar. "Good evening," the husband said to the burglar. "I am pleased to see you. Come upstairs and meet my wife. She has been waiting to meet you for 10 long years." There was the anticipation of a problem, and it finally came to be. In the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6, we see 7 reasons why we should not worry. Last Sunday evening, we looked at the first 3 reasons. Worry is inappropriate for followers of Christ. Worry is inconsistent with being a child of God. Worry is ineffective. Not only is it incapable of producing good, but it can actually be injurious to our health, physically, mentally, and spiritually. This evening we consider 4 more reasons that should keep us from worry. We'll begin reading in verse 31 of Matthew chapter 6. "So do not worry, saying, 'What shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear?' For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." We first want to consider that worry is insulting. Verses 31 and 32. Worry implies that we have no heavenly Father. If we are a follower of Jesus, if we are a child of God and we worry, we put ourselves on the level with the Gentiles or the heathens or the pagans. Now that term, whatever it is in your translation, is more a religious distinction than a racial distinction. When Jesus speaks these words, non-Jews who had no knowledge, or for the most part had no knowledge of the true God and no relationship with Him, worried and fretted about physical needs such as food, clothing, and shelter. But believers have a loving Father in heaven. God knows what we need. In the past, a few church buildings had a large eye painted on one wall to represent the all-seeing eye of God. Job 34 verse 21 says, "His eyes are on the ways of men. He sees their every step." The giant painted eyeball frightens some children. However, to the child of God, the concept of God as an all-seeing and all-knowing is not frightening, but comforting. God knows us. God knows our needs. Also, worry is improper. Notice the command, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness." We are to put first things first. And with this command comes a promise. All these things will be given to you as well. Larry Chenard wrote, "Anxiety is therefore incompatible with a life devoted to the pursuit of God's kingdom. It surely is the case that while Christians may not know what the future holds, we live in confidence in the one who holds the future." Also, worry is impractical. Verse 34. "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Don't worry about tomorrow. John Stott wrote, Jesus mentions both today and tomorrow. All worry is about tomorrow, whether about food or clothing or anything else. But all worry is experienced today. It's about tomorrow, it's experienced today. And whenever we are anxious, we are upset in the present about some event which may happen in the future. However, these fears of ours about tomorrow, which we so acutely feel today, may not be fulfilled. We basically say, well, I'm not going to worry about today, but what about tomorrow? Who knows what terrible things might happen tomorrow? A.T. Robertson said that tomorrow is the last resort of the anxious soul when all other fears are put to rest. An old man came across a young man who looked very troubled. "What's wrong?" the older man asked, and the younger man told him. The older man asked, "Have you done all that you can do about this?" "Yes," said the younger man, and he listed all he had done. "Are you sure you've done everything you can?" the older man asked. "Yes," said the younger man, "I'm sure." "Then," said the older man, "you can do no more. Now you must leave the matter in God's hands." The Jews had a saying, "Do not worry over tomorrow's evils, for you know not what today will bring forth. Perhaps tomorrow you will not be alive, and you will have worried for a world which will not be yours." You know, even if what we fear does happen, worry is not going to help us meet the problem. Ian McLaren wrote that anxiety does not empty tomorrow of sorrow, but it empties today of its strength. It does not make you escape the evil. It makes you unfit to cope with it when it comes. Well, Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow. But the principle here is also, do take care of today. Doyle Masters preached a sermon on this text titled, "One Day at a Time." And his sermon had 3 points. Today is all you have. Today is all you need. Today is all you can handle. In Dale Carnegie's book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, he described submarines with watertight compartments. One compartment can fill up with water without sinking the entire vessel. He then made this application. We need to live in day-tight compartments. We need to handle one day at a time. We need to handle today. Jack Lewis said, one must deal with the real and not with anticipated problems. The one equips man for living, the other cripples him. Also, Jesus tells us that worry is infidelity. Verse 30. Again, we go back to God. If God so clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Howard Fowler wrote that worry is a practical expression of infidelity because it indicates that the worrier distrusts God. Robert A. Mounce said, worry is practical atheism and an affront to God. Well, worry is practical infidelity, practical atheism, because when we worry, we are living as though there were no God. There is a God. We believe in Him. We need to act like we do. Worry shows a lack of faith. There are a few times recorded in the Gospels of Jesus saying to people, "O you of little faith," and this is one of them. "O you of little faith." He's saying to his hearers here, those who believe in God, you're acting like the pagans. You're not showing faith. we need to build faith. Someone said if we worry, we can't trust. If we trust, we can't worry. There's always that temptation to worry. If we're having some financial problems, if there's illness, if we're facing surgery, we may get on that worry track. Hopefully, when we start doing that, we realize, I'm not accomplishing a thing here, and I'm showing a lack of trust, a lack of faith in God. Well, worry is a thin stream of fear that trickles through the mind, which, if encouraged, will cut a channel so wide that all other thoughts will be drained. Dr. E. Stanley Jones, a missionary to India, has a beautiful passage in his book, Transformed by Thorns. He writes, "I am inwardly fashioned for faith, not for fear. Fear is not my native land, faith is. I am so made that worry and anxiety are sand in the machinery of life. Faith is the oil. I live better by faith and confidence than by fear, doubt, and anxiety. In anxiety and worry, my being is grasping for breath. These are not my native air. But in faith and confidence, I breathe freely. These are my native air." Gordon MacDonald observed, "No man ever sank under the burden of today. It is when tomorrow's burden is added to the burden of today that the weight is more than a man can bear." George Mueller said, "The beginning of anxiety is the end of faith. The beginning of true faith is the end of anxiety."